Bulls basketball is not too far away, y'all. But hey, with all the things going on with the Chicago Bulls, I want to talk about two of my young players, Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips. Is this the last season that Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips will be with the Chicago Bulls? Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it all down, but you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac gang.
Shot Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on another daily episode. So if you're tuned in, locked in, ready to talk Bulls basketball, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. But hey, we seen all these offseason moves happen with the Chicago Bulls. Wasn't many, but that was some. You know what I'm saying? And those moves, of Isaac Okoro retaining Josh Giddey, bringing and resigning Trey Jones, it's now created a little bit of a kerfuffle, if I'm using the word correctly, within the Chicago Bulls locker room, or at least for the rotation that is going to be available for the taking if guys really want those opportunities. But I really want to hone in on two of our young guys who we got a couple years ago. And I don't necessarily know where we're going to go with these two young players. Personally, that's just me on the outside looking in, or me trying to evaluate how are the Chicago Bulls going to move through this season in preparation for 2026. Now, I know y'all going to say, or there's going to be some say, how can we even talk about 2026 when we ain't even played basketball games yet? Well, that has been the objective from the front office, sticking to their plans, not quote unquote missing or skipping any steps. So we have to anticipate, or at least consider, that these guys are going to go out there and try to plan for 2026. So this is going to be a big season for Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips, in my personal opinion. There's times that me and C-Dub have done lives, discussed Chicago Bulls basketball, and said that, hey, now this is the season to where one of these guys got to separate from one another, or separate themselves from other said players on the damn team. Now, when you look at Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips, I look at them as guys that are literally running side by side, but Dalen Terry is starting to take the lead. Earlier last season, we talked about Julian Phillips being ahead of Dalen Terry, but once the season continued on and things got around that second half of the season, Dalen Terry, at least in my opinion, started to go out there and earn trust more so than Julian Phillips. When we talk about Dalen Terry, this is a guy that we nicknamed Crash Bandicoot when he first came into the NBA and played for our Chicago Bulls, simply because it seemed like, though he can bring energy to the team, it seemed like he did not necessarily know how to channel that energy to be impactful or be effective enough on the basketball court. And then we seen Dalen Terry have that type of impact. Is it impact that go out there and maybe shock the world? No. But you seen Dalen Terry come in, be able to handle the rock, be able to distribute a little bit, be able to look more confident in his shot, be able to provide some type of defense for the Chicago Bulls. And some of the same things can be said about Julian Phillips. But we don't see Julian Phillips necessarily handle the rock so much for the Chicago Bulls. We see Julian Phillips as kind of like that DJJ type of role that he had with the Chicago Bulls. You're going to stand in a corner. If it's open, shoot the three. If you got an opportunity, go ahead and grab a rebound. Go grab the rebound. At one point, we even before the trade happened that brought in extra bodies in Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones, and Zach Collins, we thought that Dalen Terry, or at least me, I won't speak for y'all, or at least I thought that Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips can provide some type of defensive presence on the wing for the Chicago Bulls. And it was there. But again, around that second half of the season, things started to change. We seen less of Julian Phillips and just a little bit more of Dalen Terry. So will this be their last season? I don't know. For both of them, I don't know. But right now, who I believe has the stronger chance, I'm not even going to hold you. I believe it is Dalen Terry because he can bring you a lot of different things. This season is going to be big for both Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips because we want to see who's going to be the separator. We got a number of forwards and new players all throughout the team, or some players that have been here that are trying to stick around maybe a little bit longer. Now, I understand when it comes down to discussing Nikola Vucevic, discussing Zach Collins, Kevin Huerter, Isaac Okoro, things can change. But where in this equation does Julian Phillips fit in? Where in this equation does Dalen Terry fit in? Because the Chicago Bulls seem like they are committed to Josh Giddey. Now we're giving him that money on. I believe they are committed now with Trey Jones to giving him that money on. Now we looking at Montes Buzelis with the expectation of him taking a step forward. And I don't necessarily believe that you trade for Isaac Okoro if you don't have foresight of hoping that he can stick around for a couple more years. So when it comes down to all those things considered, I'm looking at, hey, Dalen Terry, how can you insert yourself into the rotation? How can you become a separator when it comes to those other guys that may be intertwined into this rotation? Because if we're talking about Patrick Williams, we can't forget about him as a wing. The Chicago Bulls paid him, you know what I'm saying, that new contract, and that could be one of the determining factors to where the Chicago Bulls play politics and say, we got to get our money's worth. Now, we heard rumors when it came to Patrick Williams that said, hey, we looking to move this young fella. We looking to move him. But right now, his trade value is in the dumps. So how do you allow the trade value to go up? He's going to have to receive playing time. So anytime that we see Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips with guys like Montes Buzelis that's going to get minutes, Isaac Okoro that's going to get minutes, Kevin Huerter that's going to come in and provide some type of shooting, how do these guys make their way into the starting lineup and never give up their minutes, or let's say earn more minutes? I know injuries are a part of the game, but if everyone's relatively healthy, how can they work themselves into the lineup? So it's going to be interesting to see where these two guys end up at the end of the season. I'm not going to count out a young player because a lot of the times young players, when their backs against the wall, they show you who they really are. Some people thrive. Some people need a change of scenery. We'll see what's in store for guys like Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips. These guys, they bring a lot of different things. And to me personally, two different type of players. Can Dalen Terry continue his progression with handling the ball, with distributing to his teammates, but most importantly, hitting that three on a consistent basis? Can Julian Phillips come in, provide good minutes on the defensive side, and give you extra help on the boards, extra shots from the three, or just putting the ball in the basket like we expect all our players to do? This is a big season for a lot of guys on this team. We're not talking about just Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips, even though this is the main premise of this episode, but moves are going to have to be made. Decisions are going to be made simply because with all the expiring contracts, the expectation is how can we better this team? And I will say this, if the Chicago Bulls can come out and surprise some people, let's just say surprise, and end up in the playoffs. I don't necessarily have them in the playoffs right now, but let's just say for the sake of discussion that they surprise some people and find themselves in the playoffs. And Kobe White performs well. Ayo Dosunmu performs well. Those guys might be due for a payday. How does Dalen Terry perform throughout this season to where if the Chicago Bulls do make the playoffs, he earned playoff minutes? Potentially. Can he do that? That's a little ahead of time. That's a little ahead, and that's thinking way down the road. But who's going to earn that trust from this coaching staff that, hey, if I put Julian Phillips in based off matchups, he can help our basketball team win games. Hey, if I put Dalen Terry, if a guy goes down, or if we just need a burst of energy just to try to switch something up in a 7-game series, how does Dalen Terry respond? Yeah, so those are going to be some interesting things to watch out for this season. I'm not going to say both of these guys are going to go because anything can happen, but I will say if we are banking on one player to stay right now, I gotta go with Dalen Terry of having a better chance to stay after this season. But I will also include that there is a possibility that the Chicago Bulls do away with both of them. Not even gonna hold you, because we looking at other young players that are going to be in the background, like Lachlan, like Noah Essengay. Both of those two players are going to be on a developmental plan this season to see if they can eventually make it to the main squad and produce. And if you can get Noah Essengay up and ready to where he's playing meaningful minutes in the second half of the season, that's doom and gloom for somebody like Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips. Because at the end of the day, if all those things we talked about in the Chicago Bulls surprise somebody, that Munyon is going to be dispersed to Kobe White, potentially Ayo Dosunmu, and maybe a free agent that can come in and help the Chicago Bulls take another step forward if the front office feels that whatever said player that may be available is better for the team than a Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips. But it is early. I want to mention that it is early, so don't lose your pennies. Okay, it's going to be okay. But it is something that we have to think about when it comes to pushing this thing forward. Obviously, games still have to be played. So we're going to go out there and play those games and see what these young fellas are made of. Dalen Terry has been in the booth, you know what I'm saying, in the lab working. Julian Phillips, I imagine, has been in the lab working as well. Guys have been getting together, trying to gel, build that chemistry. But it's all going to come down to, number one, how do you impact the team? And number two, what are you doing as an individual that says we need to retain this said player? We'll see what happens with that, man. We'll absolutely see what happens with that. Y'all know we getting closer and closer to basketball. We got football all the way already here. We bike on that. And real soon, we're going to be saying we bike for the basketball season. But that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning into another episode. Before you get up out of here, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well, man. We appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all always see red. And y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for the show.
Cognac.